Mixed martial arts, MMA. You're probably thinking UFC, Bellator, ACA, Fight Nights Global, One Championship, Risen, Invicta Fighting Championships, Absolute Champions, M1 Global, Cage Steel, or we can go way back, Strikeforce and Pride. But if I were to ask you who is the greatest MMA fighter of all time, you're probably thinking George Rush St. Pierre, or Anderson Silva the Spider, Demetrius Johnson Mighty Mouse, John Bone Jones, Royce Gracie Bash Rutten, Frank Shamrock, Chris Cyborg. And although these names can all be debated, there will always be one name that comes up in every conversation. Fedor Emelianenko, the last emperor, the quiet, stoic, and humble fighter, even once said, "No one expected me to be a champion." Fedor Emelianenko is a legend in the sport of mixed martial arts. Love him or hate him, he's had one of the most storied and acclaimed careers in MMA history. From his humble beginnings in Russia, to his heyday in Japan's Pride organization, to his hard times in the United States, to his recent victories. To inspire thousands of young people with his skills, the story of Fedor Emelianenko's rise and fall, and rise again, is one that defined an era and may even define the future of MMA itself. So how did it all begin? In this video, you will come to know one of MMA's icons, the story of Fedor Emelianenko, considered one of the baddest men on earth at one time, and certainly an MMA legend. Welcome to Untapping Your Potential, where we will share with you motivational stories, motivational figures, comeback stories, and public speaking tips that will keep it growing and inspire you to take action. September 28, 1976. Fedor Emelianenko was born in Rubzin, which is now considered a part of the country of Ukraine. His family moved to a town called Story of Fedor in Russia, where he was 2 years old. His mother worked as a teacher and his father was a steelworker. Emelianenko grew up in a full house with one older sister and two younger brothers. One of his older brothers also became a professional mixed martial artist, Alexander Emelianenko. Emelianenko went on to graduate from high school in 1991 and even graduated from a professional trade school in 1994 with honors. Fedor was a firefighter in the Russian army for 2 years, but he realized it was not for him. He got married in 1999 and they had one child, a daughter, and they just welcomed their second daughter in 2007. His interest and enthusiasm for fighting began with judo, which is a modern Japanese martial art and combat sport. He began training under a judo instructor, but after a little bit of time he turned to Vladimir Mikhailovich Voronov, who is his coach today. Voronov started training with Fedor Emelianenko when he was a young boy and often likes to regulate about when he was weak and did not have the talent he possesses today. The greatest thing about Fedor is that he has always had an innate perseverance and strong will. Emelianenko was granted the official certification of a Master of Sports in 1997 for both Sambo and Judo, where he then became part of the Russian national team. Fedor has competed on a very high professional level for Judo, and in 1998, he even won a bronze medal in the Russo Judo Championship. This is when he started studying under Alexander Vasilyev Michkov, where he learned techniques of striking with his arms and legs. And it was not until the 21st century, though, when Fedor, he ran out of money. So he decided to compete in combat Sambo. Humble in victory, gracious in defeat. He once said, "I never believed I was the best fighter in the world." He was 25 years old at the time, married with a child, and really needed a better source of income for him and his family. As a result, he turned to MMA. Emelianenko began his mixed martial arts career as a member of the Russian top team, also known as RTT for Fighting Network's Rings. He trained under senior members such as Volkan and Andrei Kopyov. After a bout with Gary Goodridge, he left Russian top team and joined the Red Devil Sports Club. And he stays with them up until 2012 in his first retirement. Fedor goes on to win his first 4 fights, even against Ricardo Arona, a respectable Brazilian mixed martial artist at the time. Then, Emelianenko suffered his first loss in the sports with rings. He lost against Tsuyoshi Koshaki at the King of Rings 2000 block event B in December 2000 via doctor stoppage, due to a cut merely 17 seconds into the fight. Footage shows that the cut was caused by a missed looping punch where Kosaka's elbow struck Emelianenko's head, which reopened a cut sustained in the previous fight. Fedor would go on to compete and win the Rings Absolute Class Tournament finale. Entering the Pride Fighting Championship just right after winning the ring 2002, Emelianenko debuted at Pride 21 against the long, tall Dutch fighter Sammy Schultz, whom he defeated by unanimous decision. His next opponent was a heavyweight Keith Haring in a contest to establish the #1 heavyweight contender. Emelianenko, considered an underdog, dominated Haring with a ground and pound winning by doctor stoppage after the first round. Then, Pride 25. Fedor would go on to face Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira and give us an instant MMA classic. He dominated Nogueira for 20 minutes with a brutal ground and pound. With a unanimous decision, Emelianenko became the second Pride heavyweight champion, a title he would never lose. Then came the one-sided bout against heavy underdog Gary Goodridge at Pride Total Elimination 2003. Emelianenko took down Goodridge and finished him with ground and pound in the first round by referee stoppage. He will be one of the few to take out Mark Coleman, a former UFC champion, and simply showcase his talent. He would later fight him again with the same result. Fedor would go on to survive a head slam by the late Kevin Randleman, only to switch it up and submit him. We get another classic bout with Nogueira, again displaying his sambo and strong ground and pound against the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. His most impressive fight, and considered an MMA classic, fight of the decade in the 2000s, was against Mirko Krokop. The deadly Croatian would leave opponents devastated in his bouts. He was known for high kicks where right leg to the hospital and left leg to the cemetery would bring fear to the eyes of his opponents. After Krokop defeated Fedor's brother, Alexander Emelianenko, it became personal. Fedor versus Krokop would go on to be a grueling fight, where Fedor would go on winning the bout, but not without sustaining damage and giving us a bloodied, battered, and iconic look from the champion. Fedor would continue his dominance even against the likes of Mark Hunt through submission, and even a freak show battle against Hung Man Choi, also through an armbar. After the Pride organization's demise, Fedor goes on to Affliction, defeating former UFC champions Tim Sylvia and Andrei Arlovski. It was during his prime that UFC president Dana White made efforts to bring Fedor. After the collapse of Affliction, UFC president Dana White tried repeatedly to sign Emelianenko to an exclusive UFC contract. White said of Emelianenko, "He has become my obsession. I wanted him in the UFC worse than the fans wanted him." However, the two could never agree, and it certainly was one of the deals Dana White wished he could have secured, as the fans wanted to see him fight against Brock Lesnar and even Randy Couture. Fedor would go on to join Strikeforce and easily knock out Brett Rogers. Then, as the saying goes, whatever goes up must come down. In one of the biggest upsets in MMA history, Emelianenko suffered his first loss in 10 years on June 26, 2010 to Fabricio Werdum. After knocking Werdum down early in the first round, Emelianenko closed in, but Werdum secured a deep triangle and an armbar from his guard, and Fedor was forced to only do one tap. The tap that would be heard around the MMA world. Fedor participated in the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix, featuring many stars such as Alistair Overeem, Fabricio Werdum, Josh Barnett, and Daniel Cormier. But it was short-lived as he lost to Bigfoot Silva. Emelianenko also had a wild clash against the legend Dan Henderson and almost bested him, but was quickly knocked out and the ref would not accept his quick recovery. Fedor would leave the US and go back to his home country, Mother Russia, and he would put up a nice streak against fighters such as Jeff Monsoon, Pedro Rizzo, and Fabio Maldonado. It was also rumored that Fedor would retire. Now, originally denying the rumors, he does make the announcement after defeating Rizzo by knockout in the first 2 minutes of the first round. Then, in 2015, after a 3-year hiatus mixed martial arts, Fedor makes the announcement that he's returning back to active competition and to begin training immediately. During Bellator 165, it was announced that Emelianenko signed a multi-fight deal with Bellator MMA. Unfortunately, he loses to Matt Mitrione, but then puts up an impressive win against Frank Mir and Chael Sonnen. Fedor would go on to lose against Ryan Bader in 2019 in a knockout, a bout that took only 35 seconds. He was too old, too battled, not as fast, but Fedor would not let that finish his legacy. He would go on to defeat Quinton Rampage Jackson and then also Timothy Johnson. And now just recently, he went up against Bader, a man at the age of 46, competing for the heavyweight belt. But Father Time is always undefeated. Joined by fans around the world, legends in the ring, everyone on their feet as he laid his blue gloves on the ring one last time. The Last Emperor leaves MMA with an impeccable resume and a lengthy list of memorable moments. Moments that you will never ever see again. A fighter, a real strong fighter, should always look dignified and calm. And I believe that any expression of aggression is an expression of weakness. A strong person will not be nervous and will not express aggression towards his opponent. He will be confident in his abilities and his training. Then he will face the fight calmly and balanced. There may never be another heavyweight fighter as dominant and skilled as the great Fedor Emelianenko. I never consider myself as a legend, just a simple man with heart. Whether you're new to MMA from ESPN or from the Conor McGregor area, or a veteran and a dedicated fan to the sport, I hope you appreciated what you witnessed. It is truly an honor to see any of his fights. Look back at Prime Fedor. Never in the sport have we ever seen such a decorated and legendary fighter go practically unbeaten for 10 years. To bring that aura of invincibility where both the opponent and the audience would feel as he makes his way to the ring. He was the Mike Tyson of MMA. Never to be seen and never to be repeated. A man where if you saw him, he would look like your regular Joe, wearing an ugly sweater, but to fans, it's the sweater of absolute victory. Didn't have the most chiseled physique, but make no mistake, he had the power, speed, and intelligence in the ring. He went practically undefeated 28 fights. I mean, his first loss was really a 17-second TKO, but in reality, it should have been a no contest. If you really think about it, he went undefeated 31 fights. A man who has defeated 7 UFC champions, 1 Pride FC champion, and 1 Strikeforce champ, defended his belt 3 times, fighting for 23 years in various organizations. The one who got away from the UFC. Yet a man where many legends in the sports came to see him compete one last time. It's an end to an era, an ambassador to the sport, a class champion, a pioneer who changed and moved the sport forward, holding it on his back for a time. Pride never dies. Indeed, without any doubt, the greatest MMA heavyweight of all time, the Last Emperor. Family is first. They've been waiting for me for a very long time. Fedor Emelianenko. Thanks for watching this video. How would you like to hear more motivational stories on a consistent basis? Do me a favor and support the channel by sharing, commenting below, and please make sure to like and hit that subscribe button to get the latest updates. Soon you will be on your way to feeling inspired.